In a world filled with violence and pain, in a world filled with sickness and fear, we take time now to pray that all of us and all those we love find comfort and healing and renewal this Shabbat. As a community, we think specifically of Gloria Gates, Bruce Goldstein, Morty Goldstein, Alex Intrater, Sheila Namio, Chester Perlinsky Sr., Jill Rabina, Rabbi Stephen Sager, Rabbi Terry Bookman, Ray Testa, Tucker Turin, and Adam Waldman. For all of these individuals and all those whose names and images are floating in your head and heart right now, we pray to God for refuah shlema, a healing of body, mind, and soul.
Machol habracha laimotenu. May the source of strength that bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Ani sheberach imotenu v'chol habracha lavotenu, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We offered a Misha Barach, a prayer for healing, but in this world, sometimes one prayer doesn't feel like it's enough. Rabbi Naomi Levy writes, "Be with me, God. I feel so lost. I can't seem to escape the dark cloud that's hanging over me today. Help me, God. Give me strength to combat despair and fear. Show me how to put my pain into perspective. Teach me to have faith in the new day that is coming. Thank you, God, for today's blessings, for tomorrow's hopes, and for your abiding love. Teach me always to believe in my power to return to life, to hope, and to you. No matter what pains I've endured, no matter how far I have strayed from you, give me the strength to resurrect my weary spirit. Revive me, God, so I can embrace life once more in joy, in passion, and in peace." I begin this evening with her words because I think many of us today feel powerless in a world gone crazy. COVID-19, systemic racism, financial hardships, and enough uncertainty about the future that it could fill the Grand Canyon. Even those of us who are normally able to find the good and seize the day, focus on the positive, are finding that we're struggling now in our current reality. We watch the news and see coronavirus cases growing rapidly, especially here in Florida. And we have no control over the virus, little control over the race for the vaccine, little control over the rising numbers or the timeline. Not to mention all the other things in the news that keep our heads spinning. And I know parents are struggling with distance learning and yet fear sending their children back to school or to camps. Adults struggle with isolation and yet fear social interaction. All options seem to come with significant challenges. The more powerless we feel, the more we are prone to feeling stressed and anxious. And these moments have turned into days and weeks and months, and the fatigue is setting in, and we might be feeling like pulling a Korah. You see, in this week's parsha, Korach leads a rebellion against his cousins, Moses and Aaron. Korach is seen by our rabbis as the ultimate rebel, vilified by our rabbinic scholars and portrayed as entitled and power-hungry. But what if Korach's not acting from a place of entitlement, but rather from a place of fear? Rabbi Vered Harris offers this alternative perspective, asking, what if Korach's behavior reflects something different? A feeling of helplessness. This is something right now so many of us can relate to. We long for some measure of control, for some glimmer of hope, for a leader to address how we feel. Rabbi Harris connects our Torah portion and Haftorah portion this week through this lens of feeling helpless, explaining that our Haftorah finds the prophet Samuel also facing these feelings. In this time, the people desired a king, but Samuel did not want to appoint a king over Israel because he feared people would think the king held the ultimate power over them, and they would lose connection to God. Samuel felt both powerless to say no to the people's request and powerless over the inevitable distancing from God if he were to say yes. Samuel saw both options as difficult. While Korach ultimately rebels and Samuel ultimately concedes, neither of them seem like ideal responses to their feelings of powerlessness over their reality. So how can we read their stories this week in this strange moment in time and find another solution? One solution is to turn inward. We can start this process with prayer. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch defines prayer as striving to regain the eternal values of life if we should have lost sight of them through the deceptions, errors, conflicts, and temptations of living. We are, all of us, facing dilemmas of losing sight of external values. And so maybe the way to regain clarity is through the tough work of our heart, or spiritual work. I know I'm a rabbi, so deciding to pray or be spiritual isn't really some new innovative idea. And you might ask, how can our prayer life or spiritual life redirect our feelings of helplessness? Well, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel sharply distinguishes between two ways of being: the way of expediency on the one hand, and the way of wonder on the other. Expediency is important. Yes, we long to find solutions, to take control, to create better options, but there's more to life than the way of expediency. If we could walk the line between these two dichotomies delicately, how could we best respond to the moment we're in? The way of expediency is, of course, necessary to find a vaccine or open the economy, to provide sustenance to those in need and social interaction to the most vulnerable and the most isolated. Yet delicately balanced with the way of wonder would mean taking the extra time to reach inward and focus on our gratitude, and then to reach out to those around us who are in need of a phone call. Those of us who are paralyzed by fear, who are angry and tired and raw. It's in these moments we can deepen our appreciation in order to respond with compassion and grace. We can also live in the way of wonder by reminding ourselves that life has always been a mix of good and bad. We can look back at the story of creation and note that before God created the world, there was darkness and chaos. Reminding ourselves once again that darkness precedes light and that the natural way of the world is disruption. Reminds us that light and goodness do not seamlessly happen upon its own, but rather need to be created and formed. As these days carry on, showing up for ourselves and for others gets harder. Week after week, as we are unable to come together in our sanctuary, we miss sharing greetings, hugs, and handshakes, sharing moments over the welcome reception table, and praying in the presence of friends and loved ones. Our longing to be back together grows as it gets harder and harder to be apart. It's these days more than ever that we need to dig deep, create moments of calm in our lives, create opportunities for wonder and support. We need to remind ourselves that at some point in the future, this darkness will give way to light. And every day, every moment is an opportunity to create something positive and new. So as we step into this Shabbat, let's choose to work tirelessly through the feelings of powerlessness and anger and fear, and have the strength to pause, to continue to do the prayers of our hearts, and to use both the way of expediency and the way of wonder to deepen our appreciation in order to respond as our best self, even in the most uncertain times. May we hold on tight to the knowledge that light and goodness can be created, if not for the world, at least in our hearts and our minds. Shabbat Shalom.